Hi, my name is Serena Arora. I am an Ayurvedic Health Practitioner and certified yoga therapist, and this is a series of talks that brings Ayurvedic practices to promote optimal health and sustainable healing. And I really look forward to sharing them with you. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Okay, so today, this afternoon, we are going to take a very close and microscopic look at the sequence. Okay? The Swastha sequence. And the Swastha sequence is very intentional. It has a lot of poses in it that have come from our background. It was so interesting the way that the sequence was born. It was literally, I think Kevin and I came up with it in 20 minutes. And it's really an experience. It came so easily to us from our experiences of, my background in Ashtanga yoga and yoga therapy, and his background in Baptiste and the human development stuff, and then Ayurveda, of course. And so it really just came together in terms of what we wanted to, quote unquote, achieve with the sequence. And so as we go through it, you'll really see the why behind. We wanted it to speak to a large majority of people. And we thought, okay, what does almost everyone do? Or I guess, what does everyone do? What does every being do? And it came down to this very basic, simple, primal act. Ingest, digest, assimilate, eliminate. And we all living beings do that, hopefully. And so how to do it on an optimal state, because that sequence, that action, ingest, digest, assimilate, eliminate, in that order, determines your health. Period. That's it. It determines your health. Are you ingesting, digesting, assimilating, and eliminating optimally or not? And that is going to determine whether you are feeling swastha, very optimal health, or not. In a place of ease or in a place of dis-ease, not feeling at ease. And so how to encourage all beings to do this in an optimal way. And so we looked at lots of different yoga practices and different yoga sequences, or not looked at them, but we've experienced them in our bodies. We have history with them. And I understand the reason why certain practices were born out of certain lineages, So I explained earlier, for example, Ashtanga yoga, Pattabhi Jois. He needed fire. His guru, so everyone was studying under Krishnamacharya, and so Pattabhi Jois was studying under him, Iyengar studied under him, and Nishala Joy Devi, she was one of the only women, the very first women, female yoga students to study under Krishnamacharya. And then Desikachar was another one of his students. And so these students came to the West, and they brought this to the West. And Pattabhi Jois it was like he needed the fire, he needed the breath, he needed Ujjayi breath, and he needed structure because he was a little bit vata and all over the place. So it was like, how can I bring him into this place of structure with heat and breath, something to focus on, drishti. That Ashtanga is all about drishti and focus, breath, heat, and structure. So he was given what he needed. And then another, Iyengar, as I mentioned earlier, he was given what he needed. He could not get his body into those poses because he had a lot of injuries and a lot of setbacks. And so he used lots of props to get him into the pose, into the expression of the pose. That was his medicine. Desikachar, he came up with Vini Yoga. Vini Yoga it's actually vinyasa. That's where vinyasa came from. Vinyasa means to be placed in a specific way. To place in a specific way. And so that's, Vini yoga is very specific, and it's placed very specifically. And when it got to the West, vinyasa turned into, yes, it's being placed in a specific way, in a specific order, but it got dubbed as flow. Okay? And so in all of that, what we looked at for Swastha sequence was, okay, each one of these practices was given to a certain person, given to one person. But then all of a sudden it was taken by the masses. And if the masses are doing yoga that was meant for one particular need, one person's need, what does that mean? We're likely not in balance. If the people who need this practice are taking this practice, that they are likely in balance. But the people who don't need that and are doing this practice are likely out of balance. And so how do we create a sequence that speaks to all, and we've used Ayurveda, doshas? And this is it. This is what we came up with. So if you look on page, mine is 90, but yours is probably something else. And it's quite far into the book. It's called Therapeutics for Swastha Sequence. It's a chart. Right, actually keep going further, yeah. 103, okay, great. Right before Dinacharya. Okay, so the chart at the top has it broken down here. And so we'll just go over it a little bit. And of course, you can always look back at the sequence, the pages that you had earlier. And so we're going to go flip back and forth. So the first part of the sequence is ingest. What are you taking in? And we have thought, okay, everyone needs to ingest, but at different speeds, at different times, and at different capacities. Some people have a large capacity to ingest, some people have a lesser capacity to ingest, or it takes them more time. And so if you look at the sequence in ingest, we were like, okay, let's make this palatable for all doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. So we make it tri-doshic. And if we're going to make it tri-doshic, we want to make it really specific. So we start with what? And you guys can flip back to your sequence if you don't know it, but try and go off by heart. Pelvic rocks. Okay, so it's, Okay, good. Pelvic rocks. So pelvic rocks into bridge, which is 4-part bridge. So we start with pelvic rocks. So it's this really slow, conscious movement of the pelvis, which is the seat of which dosha? Say it louder, Ashley. Vata. Good. So the seat of Vata. Why are we connecting with Vatas first? Why are we grounding the Vata first? We're bringing Vata, bringing attention here because they're all over the place. They are still wherever they came from while they come to your class. As they lie on your mat physically, they are likely mentally not there. They are likely somewhere else. And so it's instant. We got to bring them into the practice, physical practice. Okay, these pelvic rocks are really slow, repetitive movements that turn into a 4-part bridge. Yes, we just said that. And we consider that what kind of movement? Repetitive, slow, conscious movement. Louder. Somatic movement. And somatic movement speaks to whom? Which dosha? Pitta. It's good for pittas to flow and calm down the pitta. So now you've got vatas engaged. You've got them grounded and present, a little more present. And you're using this 4-part bridge for pittas to bring pittas into a place of like, maybe more fluid, maybe more, I don't really need to be so focused on one thing. Let me start to like, I need to do this, and then I do that, and then okay. And start to just focus on breath and movement. Not only that, but our kaphas, we started on what? How did we start the practice? How do we always start the practice? On your back. And kaphas, they come into a class quite, what? Like unsure, there's a little more doubt with them. They're like, okay, if you throw a kapha into an Ashtanga class, and you're like, it's their first time in yoga, and you put them at the top of their mat, okay, stand at the top of your mat, inhale up, inhale arms up, exhale forward fold, inhale halfway lift, exhale chaturanga lower down, inhale upward dog, exhale downward dog, inhale jump through, exhale, inhale upward dog, or stand to mountain, exhale, go again, right? And if you've got them on half a breath and one movement each, are they going to stay in your class? Well, maybe, but they're not going to, they'll stay there, but they're not going to feel very successful. And they're going to feel very overwhelmed. And vatas don't, or kaphas don't move quickly. So we get you on your back. We're like, hey, go ahead, lie down on your back. And guess what? Nobody even looks at anybody. Nobody can see anybody when you're on your back. So you kaphas feel like, oh, okay. Ease them in. Ease them in. So now, oh, we're just doing this kind of thing. Oh, yeah, I can do that. Okay, now we're doing this. Oh, we're lifting up into bridge. Oh, yeah, okay, this seems doable. And then, what do we start with? Leg lowerings. Now, we're getting into what part of the body? Leg lowerings. It's like if they're sharp and you're using your breath. More your core now. So now you're getting into this space where kaphas need to, they're like, oh, but they've already been eased through. So now we've got some great core work, and any core work, leg lowerings. Remember Joanne, you taught core the other day, amazing. All right, so it's like, okay, and start to fire it up, fire it up, fire it up, and start to build the Agni in a gentle way, So start moving core, then we flip over, what do? I actually don't really know the sequence off. Okay, half happy baby. Okay, good. So half happy baby, and what is that good for?
Relieving vata.
Great. So we're relieving some wind, we're relieving some vata, good. So we start on the right side because we want to work with the colon. So the right side is where are my anatomy people? Ascending colon. So we start on the right side so we can start to move food. Waste. Start to move waste. So we bring half happy baby, bring our leg into our colon, breathe, massage the ascending colon or ascending colon. Then we move to the other side, start moving this descending colon. Start moving this waste around or down, out and down and out. Okay, good. So that's the focus on ingest. And then we do full happy baby, potentially. Could. It's not in the sequence. So we don't do it. We do it later, right? Right. Yeah, okay, good. See, I said I don't know the sequence. Okay, so half, good. What else is next?
Tabletop and then cat.
Okay, so now we're done. We've addressed all 3 doshic constitutions. The majority of your people, we've drawn them in. We've created a container that feels safe, that responds to their needs, and now we start moving from ingest into digest. And what's the beginning of that? Okay, so cat cow. So we're starting to come back to for pittas. Okay, slow movement because we don't want to bore pittas. Pittas need to be engaged and entertained. So it's like, okay, we got to do, so we give pittas some fluid well, we give it to pittas, but who loves it? Who loves the cat cows? Vatas. They're like, oh yeah, some flow, okay? After the leg lowerings, because vatas are like, after all the core work, vatas are like, oh, I'm so tired. But then they get back into their cow cat. And they're like, oh yeah, this is more like it, okay? Some freedom, some fluidity.
So what's ingest too? What it really is like the intro into digest, as opposed to like the setting up, like the ingest is really the setting up, and then this is sort of the transition.
Correct. Yeah. But it's written as digest, right?
No, it's written as ingest.
Oh, it's still in ingest. Perfect. Okay, good. Yep, this is it. This is like the end of it. Okay, so now the beginning. So now where do we go? Kapalabhati. So when we go to Kapalabhati, that is the beginning. What are we doing in Kapalabhati? Fire. So you are starting your Agni. You are stoking your Agni, ready to digest. So that's the beginning. So now I'm explaining this in a way of according to how we've been teaching it. Keep in mind, you do not have to. Do we teach it the same way every day? No. It's different every time because, but the elements of ingest, digest, assimilate, eliminate are there. And they're in a particular order in some way. They have that, it's like you're writing a story, you're writing a song. There's a build-up to something, then that crescendos up, and then you get to the climax, and then it decrescendos down, and then you start to eliminate. So it's an ingest, slow burn up to digest, and then it's like you're at your fire, now you've got digest. It's fiery, it's twisty, even your voice can get a little more exciting, your pace can get a little faster. It's like you really want to match your the pace and the excitement and the wording as well, the cues, to what you're trying to evoke. Fire, digest. Get yourself into a place of good, strong Agni to get in the food, to take on your experiences, to take on challenge, okay? And so this is where we're building towards. And so we may not necessarily do it like this in this order, but we've got, once we hit Kapalabhati, that's when you know, okay, let's start this burn. Okay. So after Kapalabhati, downward facing dog, and then we get into all the sun salutations. Okay, so downward facing dog is pretty tridoshic. Sun salutations, half sun salutations are a nice flow, keeping pittas like slow and like, you know, not so, we just did Kapalabhati, so that's going to heat up pittas. Pittas are already hot, so if they're going to heat up pittas, now we want to keep their fire going, but like don't get them too charged up like an Ashtanga practice would, right? It's not going to be like, okay, now go, go, go. It's sustainable. It's trying to bring in some balance here. So half sunays. Notice we don't go full sun salutations. It's not this full inhale, up well, downhill, up dog, down dog, chaturanga. It's not like this whole full sequence. It's half. And so we're going to appease pittas, appease vatas, and keep kaphas flowing as well. So half sun salutations are very tridoshic. All right, good. Next we go with the lunges, the low lunge twists, the high lunges, the high lunge twists. So what are we trying to do here? What's the energy we want to evoke? Who are we speaking to? Who do we want to access and like fire up, motivate? Get the kaphas going. So we want to reduce kapha and get this going. So now we've been slow and it's gentle. Now let's fire it up. Get some sweat. Get the slow burning Agni to start burning through and creating the digestive process. Yes?
What is a three-part breath? What is that?
Yeah. I'll come back to the pranayama and the drishti after. Yeah. But because it kind of like, we don't do that. So, but I want to give you because what I'm trying to say is, you will have so much leeway in this. This is a skeleton. This is Joe the skeleton. Your work after this is to take the skeleton and maybe you take away certain muscles and maybe you add certain muscles and add ligaments and then add skin and then add like whatever it is that you make it yours. Okay, so this is not written in stone. This is just a skeleton that it's a go-to. You can always come back to it and you can start to use it and the concepts of what we're doing and make it however you, like own it. Make it how you would like to present it. Make it Dan's yoga, make it Anna's yoga, make it Matt's yoga, make it Joanne's yoga. So it's like, how can you make it like how do you bring you to this Swastha sequence?
And can we call it Swastha?
Yes.
So we can't, because that's
Please.
what Noelle and I were talking about earlier. Like,
Yes.
we can't call it. You know, she's like, "What is it? Hatha yoga?" I'm like, "No, like it's its own thing.
Right.
It's not another thing. So
Yeah.
you can't call it something that
Yeah.
people will have an expectation of. Like,
Yeah.
I see this as like this is Swastha yoga, but then I wanted to make sure we're allowed to say,
Yes.
I teach Swastha yoga.
Yes.
Okay.
Swastha. Swastha.
Swastha.
The H is silent.
Okay, that would be helpful if I said it right. Swastha.
Swastha yoga is that. It's optimal health. Swastha means optimal health at all levels, on all levels. Okay, so mentally, emotionally, and physically, and then with all doshas as well. Good. Thanks for the question. So we're in digest. We're working. We're twist. We're strong. It's quick. It's flowing. It's expansive. What does it say? What's the energy that it says on the on the sequence in digest? What does it say at the top? Does it say anything?
It says embrace, circulate, create, embody action, accountability, create space, fire, courage, vira?
Virya. Wow, that's a lot. Okay. So say the first one again.
Embrace,
Embrace. Okay, good.
circulate,
Circulate. So these are the energies you want to create and evoke. Embrace, circulate,
create,
create,
embody action,
embody action,
accountability,
accountability,
create space,
create space. Good.
fire,
Fire,
courage,
courage,
and
virya. Okay. Good. Virya, strength, vitality. So this is the idea. This is the energy. So what do you use? What you can add. We always add poses. We always add different poses. Of course, you've seen us. We teach a class that it's not always the same. So but the energy is the same. Virya, strength, vitality, embrace, create space, and like fire. Right. So these are the we call this the flavors, the prabha of the section. So digest. Okay, good. The body part you want to focus on are the chest, the lungs, and circulation. Lots of breath. Kevin has been doing lots of kriyas in that section. So it's like the fire. I've noticed a few of you sweating. Okay. Okay, good. So that's what we want. Next section, after the low lunges and the high lunges, then we get into camel. Yeah, camel is still the digest section. And we're opening up your chest. We're getting lots of chest opening, heart opening. Why? Why do we have camel? So if we think chest openers, name some chest openers in this sequence. Start at the beginning. Chest openers, heart openers.
Again, like it exalt. You're still in the lunge. I'm sorry.
Any section. Just where do you can start at the beginning of what are some chest openers at the beginning? Okay, the cactus arms and like even the pelvic or the 4-part bridge is a chest opener. Cobra swims, chest opener. Cow, chest opener. Half camel, the exalting, chest openers. Camel, bridge. So good. What are we building towards? Wheel. Wheel is the peak pose. And everything we're doing, even the camel swims, getting our arms up overhead, even when we were the 4-part bridge with your arms overhead, and then that's beginning wheel. Arms overhead, beginning the wheel. And so you did it from the very first pose to the very last peak pose, which is wheel. And we're that's what we're doing. We're building your body up to open into a full wheel, chest opener, heart opener, belly opener, an expansive pose. And why we chose that is because we spend the majority of our day in the opposite pose, Hanchasana. Okay? So if we want to give our students the biggest bang for their buck, if we want our students to come away feeling balanced, and we want them to use their time on their mat wisely, then the encouragement is to have them do things that they do not normally do on a daily basis. So if they're in Hanchasana for most, and that's how we are, Hanchasana or Textasana, or Laptopasana, okay? If we're in that pose, we want to create the opposite effect. And opposites bring balance. That's the second principle of Ayurveda. Opposite brings balance. And so here we are, giving them a chance to do something that's the opposite, that they didn't normally do. So they can go back to their lives and back into Hanchasana and back into convenience and back into Textasana. Okay, so then they've spent their time quite well on their mat. Okay. Hence, very few forward folds. Very few forward folds we do. Okay. What's after all of the Kapalabhati, the fire, all the lunges, the twists, what's after digest? We've built this fire, we've built the sweat, the Agni is on. The digestive fire, the Agni is on. Now what? What do we want to do? Assimilate. And what is the energy of assimilate? Absorption. What else does it say at the top? Extend.
Deepen.
Sorry?
Deepen.
Deepen.
Power of choice.
Power of choice.
Squeeze and soak.
Squeeze and soak.
Circulation of blood, lymph, and prana.
Good. And you can add sustain. And so here is where you want to sustain your Agni. So yes, you've built your fire up, but now it's not just, bloop, okay, lay down on the ground, assimilate, blah. It's over, I stopped talking, right? If I'm like, and I've got this energy and digest, okay, breathe, fire up, twist, lift, open, expand, breathe, and then all of a sudden, I'm in what's the pose? Half bow. Okay, before half bow, we just kind of get you on your belly, right? Cobra swims, and then you want to lie on the ground, but do we want them to just lie on the ground and like nothing's happening? It's over. We just did a 20-minute class. No, we want them to sustain the fire. So we keep this now. It's a decrescendo, a slow decrescendo, but it's a sustainable, almost like a plateau. Where can you keep them on this plateau of fire, of physical Agni? And now use that fire, that motivation to start to reflect. What am I taking in? What am I keeping? What am I going to eliminate? Power of choice. Now do you notice we start talking to you about your yoga off the mat? Oh, okay, so what are you deciding? What are you choosing? We talk about the theme of the day. What is really going on with you? And outside of your mat, now you've got them in these poses that are a little bit more longer holding. You don't need to cue them physically that much. So we start cobra swims, then we go into half bow. What are you aiming at? Bow and arrow. What are you aiming at? Right? What is your focus here? And what is your focus off the mat, more specifically? And then half bow, we're opening. Bow is another opening. Bow is the other, and it's in a different orientation. Yes? And in a different orientation? Bridge. Yeah. So we're moving towards this. So bow, and then next pose. Wild thing, prone, so we're opening, we're creating space, we're letting go of some of the heat, but we're keeping it sustainable, okay? Let them start to meet them on a more cognitive level now. Meet them on a more, and this is great for pittas. We want pittas to start to release some of the heat, but we want to keep them engaged mentally. Because pittas will be like, oh, that's all we're doing? We're not moving anymore? This is it? I thought we were just getting started. And so keep them engaged mentally and starting to okay, because pittas will want to, they still focus. So it's like, what are you aiming at in your life? How are you going to take your yoga off the mat? What are you going to do? How are you going to take this? And then half frog twist, all of the openings. Then we move into eliminate, the last section. So we're reducing. Sorry, I forgot to mention the doshas. So digest, we're reducing what dosha? digest, the fire, reducing which dosha?
Kapha.
Kapha, reducing kapha, reducing the thickness, the heaviness, the denseness. Assimilate, we're reducing the pitta, reducing the heat out of the organs and creating space. Vata. So pull in, well, we do our peak pose first of all, right? Bridge, wheel, and now we're done. That's the peak pose of assimilate. And now we start moving back into leg lowerings. Notice that. Leg lowerings, now we're coming back to integrate because we've been so open. Wheel is like the ultimate spacious pose. We've created so much space. So now vatas, if we leave our vatas, they're gone. So we have to bring them back with something. So leg lowerings in a more slow, integrative way is going to bring our vatas back. I think
So
there's...
the leg lowerings in the eliminate sequence should be more slower?
Yeah.
than before?
Yes. Good, Joanne. The leg lowerings in the end, in the eliminate section, a little more integrative, a little more like pull myself back together after this huge opening. Now I can come back, I can bring myself, I can ground, and we use the block because it's grounding for your sacrum. So this, now your sacrum grounds.
Leg lowering, to use the word snap,
Yep.
and to me that connotates like momentum and.
Yeah.
But why? Because it would seem if you do it slower,
Mm-hmm.
like you do in dance, it would take more ab muscles
Okay.
as opposed to, and same with the assist, you kind of like fling the legs.
Yeah. And then fling them this way so that you need your abdominals to pull them back to center. Yeah, so because when your legs are over your head, it takes core to pull you back, pull them back to the L shape.
What the theory was.
Yeah, I mean, you can do them slow. You don't have, the snap is at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the end, it's just more like lower halfway, bring it back. Lower halfway, bring it back. Ground your sacrum, pull everything in. Okay, then it's a more integrative for vata. At the beginning, it's okay. We want it, that's for kapha. It's to reduce
To wake 'em
kapha.
up?
Wake you up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Snap.
the other word I had a question on is stomp.
Stomp.
So,
Have we used stomp?
yes, we did.
Oh,
that.
stamp your feet on the ground, on the ceiling?
No,
oh.
it was,
Oh,
I think it was with stork maybe?
okay.
Like, it was like,
Yeah, I think I heard.
stomp your foot,
Yeah.
and I wasn't,
Yeah.
because,
Stomp. Strong.
because like. in
Grounded.
lunge, They always tell us not to stomp, don't stomp, you know, like
In where?
from a downward dog to a lunge,
Yeah.
you place your foot
Yeah,
as quietly as you can.
So you use core there,
So,
yes?
like not stomp.
But that's a different pose.
Okay, so when we do stork, we're supposed to go like that.
Yeah, you ground through, in a balancing pose, you ground your foot. You're rooting in. Balancing poses are great to reduce kapha. Okay, so yes, kapha is a heavy, dense thing, but it's also for vatas, you need that grounding. So you don't want vatas to just float away.
Well, no wonder I asked the question.
Yeah, no wonder. Good. And you're like, I'm not stomping, I'm vata. Stomp. Your work is to stomp. Okay, good. Good question, Dan. So at the end, a lot of vata pulling into your pelvis, squeeze into your pelvis, pull back get rid of any of the excess vata, any excess wind, any excess air, wind relieving. And this is where the full happy baby comes in. Ground your sacrum, massage your colon, work on your low abdomen, and ground before you let everything go. And so that's the sequence. And that is how it flows. Okay, so we have rhyme and reason for all of it. After the peak pose, we want our vatas to come back to earth. And so that the shavasana can feel complete. So it can feel complete. You want your pittas to feel light in some ways, and of course your kaphas to feel accomplished, that they got to the end. It's like it's a great feeling. And so there's a lot, there's this sort of like this wave, it's a wave. And so you can pick it, we'll pick it a little bit more apart in the next day. And so we'll go through pranayama and drishti tomorrow. And you can create, you will get a better idea on how you can start to shape it, to add things to the skeleton, to make it look the way that you want to present this sequence to your students. And it's also, it's like, who do you have in front of you? And what do they need? And that's the next step. That's the Ayurveda. Who is in front of me and what do they need? Okay? We're going to talk about wording and energy and flavors tomorrow.